Welcome to another episode of the Overcoming Adversity podcast. I'm your host, Michael Allison. Today's guest is Josef Stetter. He's a recruiter, headhunter extraordinaire. Worked with over 11,000 people to land them in their dream jobs. He's a resume writer, a radio show host. They also call him the Dream Job Whisperer. Josef, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure, Michael.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you for being here and joining us and being on the show, man. I know that you're heavily into the workforce space. Can you tell us a little bit about your story in regards to how you did even get to this particular space?
So my story starts with the fact that, growing up, I come from, parents are like, get a good education, get a good job. And
Right.
so I studied sciences in high school, finished high school. I'm like, I don't want to do sciences. So I went and did economics and business at university because that's a good job.
Mhm.
I ended up switching careers 9 times and jobs over 18 times
Wow.
because, I got into a point where I was like, I'm not driven by this. I'm not excited by this.
Mhm.
So, I had to go through the trials and tribulation of kind of going, I have transferable skills. I know different industries. I got certified in multiple industries and so forth. And then after being downsized from banking industry, I got an opportunity to be a recruiter. In my first year as a recruiter for the company, I generated $760,000, where my supervisor, who had been there for 11 years, generated 140,000. And to reward me, the owner gave me cheese and crackers for
Mhm.
Christmas, and I was like, seriously? And like, she was like, yeah, but the cheese is from a really high end grocery store where they massage the cow for a month. Sadly, the crackers are from a dollar store. I was like, you know what? I don't need you because I brought in all new business. I built the relationships, and I'm going to start my own kind of thing. So I opened my own recruiting firm. And I've been a generalist in recruiting for 10 years. I've recruited for companies like Deloitte and Touche, Apex Pharmaceuticals, Eli Lilly, Tata Consulting Services, just to kind of name a few. And along the way, I had a business partner that taught me a very expensive life lesson of over $360,000, kind of cleared me out.
Mhm.
But as part of kind of trying to figure out what I'm passionate about, what I'm interested in, I started doing self-development courses. So I did the Tony Robbins Walk of Fire, where he spends 7 hours mentally preparing you to walk 40 feet of burning coals. And after I did that, it was such a powerful experience. I'm like, why is nobody doing this for job finding? Why is nobody actually applying principles to make a difference? So I started volunteering my time in government agencies and different organizations to kind of go, here's some ideas for you because I've switched jobs 9 times. I've gone through this. And that led to me being called back. And over the process, I've now had the pleasure of now helping over 12,000 people. I've written now my 12th book just came out, kind of thing. And I focus on teaching people systems that it's not regurgitating what people kind of can find in Google, but the mistakes that people make, like applying on Indeed, spending most of their time on Indeed, where one job posting can get between 350 and 5,000 applicants. And if you
Right.
don't know the tricks, you're never going to get noticed. And the more I do that, it's kind of, yeah, it's financially rewarding too, but there's an intrinsic value of I've made a difference. I've helped somebody advance in their life. I've helped their family. I helped, because not everybody's ready to be an entrepreneur. So I can have that conversation with businesses, but I can have that conversation with the individual that kind of goes, I just want to know that there's a paycheck every 2 weeks and I'm at this level and I need this and this and this. And so, you know, in that process, and I'm sure you're going to ask me some questions, I've had some pretty crazy experiences of do's and don'ts and kind of things that I've come across.
I absolutely will, man. Well, congratulations and all that, man. I was realizing that I've never heard of the concept in regards to like the dream job whisperer, and that was the kind of the title that I seen. That
So it's resume whisperer because here's the thing. I like being different than everybody else. There's
Right.
so many career coaches and career gurus. I was like, I'm a resume whisperer. And as soon as I say it, people go, ooh, what's that? Because I also understand how to change the algorithm and quantify the results. I love giving these two examples. If let's say you're trying to apply to be a receptionist somewhere, and you code an employer and say, I know how to answer the phone. I hope the employer looks at you in shock and goes, really? A receptionist that knows how to answer the phone? We did not know that. Because unless you live in an igloo, a cave, or practice the faith of Mennonite, my 21-month-old son can press the green button, go, hello, right?
Right.
But if you say, I know how to answer 60 calls a day with 12 different lines, I can measure 60 calls with 12 different lines. I cannot measure I know how to answer the phone. And so most resumes that I come across, people say, I know how to do this stuff. I have experience with this stuff. But unless you've quantified how good you are and what you do, nobody really cares, especially in this market right now, which is a tougher market. You need to stand out. So there's resume mistakes, there's interview mistakes, and my system focuses on, here's why you're not getting an interview. If you're sending out thousands of resumes and no one's responding to you, either there's a problem with your resume, you're presenting the wrong information, you're looking in the wrong places, whatever the case may be, there's a mistake somewhere. And so part of what I do is help you hone in on that.
I was going to follow up. So, how do you identify the right opportunities for job seekers, especially for the hidden job market?
So here's the thing. So most people default to Indeed because it's the easiest. 10% of your job per search should be Indeed. 25% of your job search should be recruiters, headhunters, because they already have relationships with the companies that you're trying to get into, right? So I always teach people register with a minimum of, let's say, 6 agencies. The reason being is you take 3, let's say, national big boys like the Randstads, the Robert Half, the Hayes, and then you take 3 local or industry specific ones. A lot of times the local ones have better relationship because they don't send 1,000 resumes. They're very selective on who they pick. Now, I will assume that half of the agencies that you register with will not like you. They don't like your accent, they don't like your age, they don't like your background, they don't like your ethnic or cultural identity, or whatever it is. But we're in a society that's very polite and respectful, so they're not going to tell you that. But if there's 3 that do like you, you're increasing your odds because they're presenting you. And a lot of times they tend to work on the same jobs. Beyond the recruiters, 25% should be LinkedIn and other social media. So if most companies nowadays have fan pages, whether it's Facebook, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, go have conversations on that, make comments. They will start looking for you if you've got insights and great comments there. 25% of your job search should be networking. But again, even in networking, people do it wrong. And then 15% of your job search should be kind of targeting, let's say, 10, 20 companies specifically and going through a motion of getting them to know you. So one of the great ways to do it is something that both you and I do, which is podcast or interview. So to send an executive an email, say, hey, I would love to interview you as an expert for my podcast or for my blog or for this article that I'm writing. Would you be open to a quick conversation? Now, you're not asking for a job, you're asking for their expertise.
Right.
So humans love to brag about how great they are.
Right.
So if you reach an executive there and say, start with getting to know them. What made you so successful? What are your 3 biggest achievements? If you were mentoring somebody in this industry, what would you focus on teaching them? And after they give you all that information, acknowledge them, thank them for the time, and then kind of, by the way, I'm in this industry. Would you mind critiquing my resume? Don't ask for the job, but ask for the critique. Why? Because if you're speaking to, let's say, a VP, and they're now critiquing your resume or giving you feedback on your resume, they're giving you the perfect resume that they want to hire.
Exactly.
So after they've done that and you acknowledge that they took the time and thank them for that, reach back and say, by the way, you know what? I learned so much from interviewing you. You're such a great leader. I would love to be part of your team. Hidden job market, for example. Some very simple trick, but those are the kind of things that I focus on.
Exactly. I want to ask you if you could expound on that a little bit. Can you talk about some of the common mistakes job seekers make when applying for jobs and some things that they can avoid? And when I'm asking that question, let me expound a little bit, because I've seen where some things are tied to like your social presence, your social media, when you get ready for the job interviews, your background is set up in a certain
So
way.
it's a very broad question. So I'm going to
Right,
start with kind of breaking it like this.
right.
On your resume, avoid these 5 mistakes. Number one, using Times New Roman, Arial, or Calibri as your font, because those are the default fonts in Microsoft Word. Everybody uses them. If you remember the movie Legally Blonde, when Elle Woods or Reese Witherspoon applies to Harvard and then to the internship, she gives a pink scented resume. And everyone looks at it and goes, it's pink and it's scented. I'm not saying make a pink scented resume, but there's a lot of things you can do to change your resume, such as adding a little bit of color to your headings, changing the font, changing your bullet points. Instead of giving me the boring circle, black circles that everybody uses on the resume or the hyphens, go into bullets and select one of the other ones, like a diamond. It's subtle, but it makes a difference, right? Stop filling your resume with generic, I have 10 years of experience. I'm hardworking, dedicated, committed team player with excellent communication skills. In 20 years of recruiting, I've met very few people that say, listen, I'm lazy, I'll show up late, none of my work will be good, and I really, really hate people, please hire me. Not unless you're related to them or having an affair with them that you can actually get away with that, right? Then again, if you've hit tough times and you're working retail right now, and let's say your background is engineering and you have a chronological resume, and so the first thing that they see is retail on your resume, they don't read past that, because most employers spend 8 to 30 seconds reading your resume, which means they look at the top third to the top half of the first page of your resume. And I speak from experience on this, because after 9/11, I was downsized from Fidelity Investments. I went to Invesco, and HR is like, it's great that you've worked at Fidelity and you're certified and you have all the background, but have you ever worked in a call center? And I looked at HR and said, if you flip to page 2 of my resume, I worked in your call center for 6 months. Right. So they don't read page 2. So if the crucial information is on page 2 of your resume, nobody sees it. And then, as I alluded to earlier, stop telling me that you know something or that you have experience in something. Give me the proof, the results, the numbers, the quantifiable. Like, I can say to you, I'm an excellent salesperson. I know how to do B2B, B2C, account management, relationship building, lead generation. I've done door-to-door sales, car sales, retail sales. I've worked in private education. I've worked in recruiting. I know how to do sales. Just because I told you a lot of words, now all those words that I just said very quickly, they're important for the algorithms of Indeed and LinkedIn and so forth, right? But just because I told you a lot of words doesn't mean I know how to do sales, right? I might not be very good at it. But if I give you a real example, like in my career, I worked for a private college that before I got hired, generated $530,000 in sales for the entire year. In 1 month, I was able to generate $860,000 in sales for them, right? So that's usually a wow reaction. And how did you do that is the follow-up question. And as long as I can explain how I did that, I can prove to you that I'm an excellent salesperson, right? So that's on the resume side. On the actual job, I mentioned use the 5 strategies that I mentioned a little bit earlier, right? So even for Indeed, for example, you need to understand that most of the job boards like Indeed, Career Builder, even LinkedIn, refresh the database between 11:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 2:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So before you go to bed, or depending on which time zone you're in, go into your resume, press spacebar, save it. The moment that you press spacebar anywhere on your resume and save it, it's considered a change to the resume, which means you're now in the refresh list. Because if you posted your resume, let's say in March, and we're now in July, you're on page 7,000 of the database. Nobody sees it, right? Second thing is, we've been taught for the past, let's say, 75 years to write action words like manage, direct, liaise, coordinated. But if you're an accountant, I need the accounting words like accountant, accounting, financial statements, balance sheet, income statement. Those are what the algorithms of the job board scores, not managed directly as coordinated. So that's the first kind of problem that, people need to get rid of. Like, we still need those action words, but you need to combine that with technical, and you also need to combine it with proof in terms of numbers and results of everything.
Absolutely. How can job seekers effectively prepare for and impress somebody for a job interview?
So again, first of all, I would say that 95% of people in an interview forget to smile. Give me 1 second, sorry. Forget to smile, right? So that's the first smile. It will help you relax. It also creates a conversation rather than question, answer, which most people don't understand. I've always taught people show up at least 15 minutes early, right?
Mm.
Respect their time, show them that you're ready. Uh, you would think that common sense, or I would say sadly, common sense has become less and less common. You know, don't have a cigarette before your interview. Like, I'm personally partially allergic to cigarette smell. So if you're coming into interview reeking of cigarettes, I'm going to focus on the fact that you had a cigarette and you don't respect me as a person, for example, right? Same thing with, you know, wearing way too much jewelry or like, there are certain things that you have to respect for culture. You should know who's interviewing you. You should do a little bit of research on what the company is. Even if you go on their website, if you Google them and go, oh, I congratulations on, having a great year because I read an article about this. It impresses them, right? Don't show up, you know, in like ripped jeans and a t-shirt kind of thing, even if the company you're interviewing for is very casual. So that's on the interview side. Again, in the follow-up after the interview, send a thank you email. You can go to 123 Greetings, get a free greeting card that has sound, that has animation, highlight the key points that you said to them to remind them how good you are. During the interview, at the end of the interview, first of all, if they ask a question and you're not sure what to say, ask for clarification. Very, very important. But at the end of the interview, you should ask for 3 to 10. You should ask 3 to 10 questions. 2 or 3 about the role itself or how it fits into the organization, and 2 or 3, like for example, 3 of my favorite questions are: if I were hired tomorrow, what is the first thing I could do to make an immediate impact? Notice the words that I'm emphasizing here. What do you think happens if you as a candidate are asking company what you can do to make an immediate impact? How are they listening to you, as just another candidate or someone that's eager to perform well, right?
Absolutely.
What would you say is the biggest obstacle for success in this position? And again, I'm emphasizing, so when they go, here's the obstacle, even if you've given them example throughout the interview, reiterate your examples to kind of show this is not a problem for you, right? And then the third question I love is, of other people that have held this position or currently hold this position, what are some of the characteristics that you would like to see repeated? And if you want to know if you're getting the job, add, and how do you see me fitting in? Because whatever the characteristics they tell you, again, emphasize how you already have them and give them examples. And if you ask them, how do you see me fitting in? If they're hesitating, they need to think about it, they're stuttering in their answer, you're not getting the job. If they answer you right away, they're very impressed with you, and you're definitely in the running for the position, kind of thing, right? So same thing with networking. It's not just go and collect as many business cards as possible. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been to networking events where people are like, oh, you sound important, can I have your card? And then the next day email me, go, I got your card at the networking event, here's my resume, can I get a job? Like, who are you? What are you? So my favorite color is purple. If you look at anything on social media, I'm always wearing something purple. When I go to a networking event, I have a purple shirt, a purple bag, a purple pen, a purple notebook, a purple business card, right? So if there's a lot of people at the networking event, my email says, I'm the guy in purple. They will remember me even if they don't remember my name. But it's part of branding yourself correctly. Also in networking, having the right conversation, not I need a job, I need a job, I need a job, but similar to what I said in terms of pretend that or start a blog or a podcast and interview experts to get insights from them directly on what you need, but use that same approach to networking. Oh, you're a VP at this company. What made you so successful? What are your 3 biggest achievements? What are you most proud of? And then acknowledge what they say, and then transition to the conversation of maybe mentoring you or helping you, or otherwise you're looking for a job, kind of thing. But not right away. Oh, you're a VP? Can I send you my resume? I need a job. No, build that relationship, kind of thing, right? So the question you asked me, there's a lot of different ways I can answer what are the mistakes, but these are the most common themes in the categories that occur, kind of thing.
Thank you for sharing that, man. So I noticed on LinkedIn, like you could see within the bubble, within the circle for your headshot picture, open for work or hiring. How can one optimize their LinkedIn profile?
So again, first of all, make sure that you actually give me information. Like, I can give you a real example. I was recruiting for a company that needed a regulatory and compliance in banking that knows how to do sales, which in itself is a needle in the haystack, and the relationship manager. Now, I looked at 1,000 LinkedIn profiles. over 600 of them literally had their job title, VP of Compliance and Regulatory Affairs, the year of work, and the name of bank that they work for, with no information on what they actually do, what their expertise in, what they've handled, with no technical skills for me to match certain criteria that I need, right? So make sure to take the time to do your LinkedIn profile, because that's the first place that recruiters generally look at to connect with you. Second of all, again, just like your resume, don't tell me that you know how to do something, quantify it for me. Give me the significance. So whether you're using SOAR, situation, obstacle, action, result, STAR, situation, task, action, result, CAR, PAR, it's all the same thing. Here's the issue, here's what you did, here's the solution, here's the result. Like, I don't care how you word it, whatever acronym you choose to follow as a practice, but stop saying to me, I know how to do something, right? Like, okay, you know how to do reporting. What the hell does that mean? You did a one-page report, whoop-de-doo, kind of thing, right? If you are at a level where you're doing more advanced reports, give me details on the report. How many pages, how many variables, how many cases, whatever data can help me understand who you are. Because especially now with AI and kind of the market shifting drastically, you can go on ChatGPT and ChatGPT will generate a decent resume, but it doesn't tell your story. And you're going to get lost in the shuffle because everybody's defaulting to ChatGPT, let's say. So you're going to get the same resume that ChatGPT produced for 1,000 other people. The only difference is the name of the employers that you've had. So unless you've worked for Google, Facebook, where by Amazon, where as a coder, let's say, and those names automatically get you a job, or you've graduated from Harvard, Yale, Stanford, MIT, right? You need to start separating yourself from the competition. Separating yourself by going, here's my story, here's the problems I have addressed, here's the, results I produced, here's, how good I am or what makes me brilliant, to whatever level of capacity you want to look at it. But, there's so many generic, like I've talked to like CFOs that think that just because they have 20 years of experience, they'll automatically get hired as a CFO. And I spoke to one CFO. I'm like, have you done any mergers and acquisitions? He's like, no. I'm like, have you done any complex financial reporting? He's like, no. I'm like, so what have you done? He's like, transactions. I'm like, okay, but that's one skill set that a CFO might need to use. So you can apply to be a CFO for a company that is, let's say, retail and does transactioning calculations kind of thing, right? Like, right. But just because you worked in retail here does not qualify you for fintech as a CFO, or does not qualify you for let's say an engineering firm, because it's a different level of calculation. And again, own what you know and how good you are at it. That's all.
Absolutely, man.
On a call. Sorry.
How can a job seeker negotiate salary so they're compensated at a fair price?
One of my favorite questions to teach people. So you have to understand something. The salary question is in essence a trick question, right? So first of all, do your homework to understand what the ranges are in your state, in your industry, and so forth. But if you ask, I'm going to give you a few quick examples, and I can spend 5 hours teaching you salary negotiations kind of thing. But someone asks you a salary question, you can say, look, the salary question is a trick question. If I give you a figure that's too high, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot, because you're going to disqualify me. If I give you a figure that's too low, I'm undervaluing what I'm worth, and you're going to kind of pay me less than what I'm worth. If you think I've done a great job explaining to you how good I am at what results I produce, I'm sure you'll give me a great offer, right? A second way to answer that, like, you know what? I'm so certain that you're going to love my work and the quality of my work that I have no problem with a lower base to start with a higher back-end incentive in terms of profit sharing or bonuses or anything like that, right? Or let's do this. We can sign this, like this is a standard of, like, so if you've done your homework, say, I understand that this industry and this role pays between this number and this number. Always give a range. Say, given how good I am at producing results, I would assume that you want to pay me in the higher end so that I'm happy and you keep me, right? But if you're concerned about that, why don't we do a contract for 3 months where I will produce X amount of results, and as long as I produce those results, you kind of have a review of salary within 3 months after my probation, where I can go to the higher end once I put the results, and you understand that If you don't hire me, you'll lose a lot more money, for example. Now you can play with that. So like in my program, I have, I don't know, 40 different ways to answer the salary question without answering the salary question, but answering the salary question in a way that, never give them a number, because you're limiting yourself. Because I had a situation where I got somebody a $450,000 raise in 4.5 hours. You heard me correctly, like a $500,000 raise in 4.5 hours, right? Craziest negotiation of my life, right? Most of the people that work or go through my program get a $30,000 to $50,000 raise, because I know how to present them in a way that companies go, oh my God, and we're going to lose so much money if we don't hire you, right? Like, understand, turnover in North America costs over $1 trillion, with a T, not a B, $1 trillion, right? So the reason there's turnover is because of the top 10 reasons that people leave a job. Salary is actually number 7, right? The culture of the organization, the lack of clear communication from leadership, the lack of opportunity to share ideas or for growth is number 1, is the top kind of 3 or 4, right? So salary is relative, right? Because, for example, I will ask a candidate, security, income, growth, or happiness, which one's most important to you? If you're security, generally you're an accountant, an engineer, you just want to have a good job. If you're income, you're usually marketing, sales. If you're growth, there's a level of, I want to learn certain things. And if you're happiness, you're a teacher, you're early childhood educator, because the joy of interacting with the kids, it's not the money, it's that I've made a difference, it's the intrinsic value, right? So salary is one of those, if you have presented how great you are at what you do, salary becomes mute, because good companies will pay you what you're worth and more.
I love that, man. Thank you for that breakdown. I want to touch on something that you said earlier, though, and it's around something that I've seen and experienced with some family members and some friends that I've used to work with, and they've been let go, they've been laid off, and
Right.
now they're older employees and they want to get back into the workforce, but now they're overqualified. How does an overqualified candidate find themselves back into the workforce?
So
Because I've
first
seen
of
people
all,
struggle with that.
don't go more than 20 years back in your work experience. I don't need your entire career history. Give me the most relevant and recent. Again, quantify the significance of the role. Now, I've been in situations where I've interviewed for positions and someone goes, you're overqualified. This is my response to when they say that to me. So if I understood you correctly, your company does not want to make more money. And then I shut up. Because they'll squirm. And then once they're done squirming, I'll say, look, if you're concerned about me being bored or leaving, first of all, I chose to apply here. Second of all, I'm willing to sign a 2-3 year contract that says I'm committing this much time to you so that you don't have to worry about turnover with me, right? And thirdly, which is happening a lot right now, you're seeing a trend where a lot of companies that go, oh, we can get a new graduate for half the price. You can educate people up to a zoo, but you cannot replace experience, right? There is tons of people that call themselves resume writers or career coaches because they go on Google or ChatGPT and they write a resume. Okay, I've invested 30,000 hours to master this, to give you advice that's you're not going to find on Google typically unless you found some of my stuff, kind of thing, right? And so when I teach people systems, I teach them the skeleton. I don't want you to memorize word for word what I tell you. I don't want you to be a robot. I want you to speak in your style, in your way, but I kind of go, here's the bone, and then you choose which meat you want to put on it. You choose the spices for it, right? You have too many systems where people go, oh, for example, one of the worst generic interview questions, tell me about yourself, right, Michael? Most people start rambling about the fact that they have kids and that they love to travel or read, which has nothing to do with the job. Here's how I teach people to answer that useless, loaded question. Where would you like me to begin? Ask them. They go, okay, tell me about your experience here. Now, whatever they told you to begin with, they've just indicated to you this is important. Otherwise, we wouldn't care to ask you about it.
Right.
So if you give them examples of results, you're setting the standard and the pace of the interview, because now they're listening to your results. They're listening to your successes, not I know how to do this. Like, I interviewed somebody yesterday and who happens to be an accountant, and I'm like, what are your three biggest achievements? She's like, you know, I'm the kind of the she didn't say, but she kind of referred to herself as the goat of the office. I'm the one that knows how to deal with issues. I'm like, okay, but what kind of cases have you done? What kind of like tax works have you done? And she kept giving me generic, like, I'm a team player. I like to learn new things. I'm like, but I'm asking you what you're proud of, and you're kind of giving me, I'm a good employee. Not the same energy. Like, it's very, very different. So if if someone says, tell me about yourself, and you go, where would you like to begin? They say, okay, tell me about your experience, let's say, as a marketer. And you could say, one of the campaigns I'm most proud of, or one of the projects I did that produced amazing result is fill in the blank. Like I created the 360 videos for GM to create an experience that people that can go on the website can look inside, let's say, the truck or the car, and feel themselves in the car while watching a video, because they can change the direction of the camera. They can now you've set a standard of how good your marketing is, or
Right.
there. And this campaign generated whatever 15 million views, right? So now the employer is going, oh wow, and you just started the interview. Think about how that translates to the rest of the interview, kind of thing, right? So, again, hide your age. Like, don't put the years that you graduated from college or university, because I can age you right away. Don't go back more than 20 years. Like, so if you started as an entry level and over 20 years, you're now a director, don't tell me anything about your entry level. Just tell me your director stuff. So if you were a director for 5 years, give me director and manager. Don't give me anything before that, kind of thing, right? Focus on the results. And what you're seeing today is a lot of companies, I'll use the automotive industry, are so quick to just, okay, here's new cars, here's new cars, new car. And they're recalling cars like crazy because the standard is not there, right? Look at how many, products, Amazon, Costco are being recalled because somebody with experience wasn't monitoring the changes or monitoring that the quality control is there. So there is a resurgence of the more mature coming back, because the more mature are not necessarily looking to be the CEO of the company. They're looking to do what they know how to do very, very well, kind of thing.
Absolutely. Joseph, can you tell us a little bit about your recent book that you just published, and what can readers get from it?
So the book was themed on forgiveness. So it's more about, like, forgiving yourself. So I kind of wrote it was a collaboration book. I wrote my chapter on kind of 5 things that you need to do for yourself to forgive yourself, regardless of what's happened to you. And to kind of understand that no matter what happens to you, like, you just went through a nasty divorce. If you've ever watched Big Bang Theory, even Sheldon Cooper found somebody to marry. There is a level where, as much as he portrayed an excellent job, like he did an excellent job of portraying somebody on the spectrum that's very, behaves a certain way and needs certain patterns of behavior, he found a perfect match for him. There is, whether it's jobs, whether it's dating, whether it's this, the human experience always has ups and downs. I had a business partner that taught me a $360,000 life lesson, and pretty much, for lack of a better word, bankrupted me, because I was young when I opened my business initially. I was like living the lifestyle of the rich and famous because I was making money hand over fist. I was like, yeah, I don't need to worry about plan B. I don't need to worry about emergency. I'll just spend the money I made. And then market crashed. Business partner taught me a lesson, and so forth. So there is a level where in the level of, if you go on YouTube and type in cockroach whisperer, you will find videos. You will find experts. So as much as we internalize and go, I'm going through this all alone, nobody understands my story, nobody knows what I'm going through, there's other people that have gone through similar, maybe different characters that are associated with the story, but we've all experienced bankrupt, we've all lost a job, we've all experienced certain hardships, whether it's in our business to move to the next level, whether it's getting the business going, whether it's at your job where you worked in a really bad environment. But there's support for everything. There is tools. There's AI now that can guide you and teach you and so forth. So be curious, get mentors, get people that, like if you want to make $100,000 a year, find someone that's making $100,000 a year, learn from them, what they did to get hired, what they did to get ahead. As soon as you get to 100,000, if you want to make $250,000, thank that mentor and find a mentor that's making $250,000, right? So there's resources for you. And trust me, the most successful people in the world want to teach you and mentor you because that's a
Absolutely.
way of leaving a legacy, right? So this is why you and I are both doing podcasts, because we want people to have access to information, right? And so, learn that it's okay. This happened. As much as you thought you were going to die, you're still here. God or whatever higher power you believe in has a purpose for you. And you need to kind of get rid of the bad energy and trust that good's coming. When I was dating my wife, she was working as a behavior therapist in an autistic center, and she needed 97% on her evaluation. She got 96, and she'd been working there for 3 years. And the owner was like, I'm firing you because you didn't pass your evaluation.
Wow.
Over 1%. And she lost 1% because something in her binder was not exactly perfect to the way that the owner wanted it. Literally. And, she cried for a couple of days, and then I reminded her that she's dating one of the top 10 career coaches in kind of North America. We wrote her kind of a new resume. She sent out 7 resumes on Sunday. On Monday, 3 companies called her and said, can you come in for an interview on Tuesday? On Tuesday, she had 3 different job interviews, had 3 different offers, all of them for more money than she was making at the previous place for 3 years.
Amen.
And that was 2 days. So understand that it's a different perspective. So when I speak to people about job finding, they're frustrated because they're like, I've sent out hundreds of resumes on Indeed. I'm not getting a response. I'm doing this. So when I started asking questions like, have you spoken to employment agencies or recruiters? No. Have you touched your resume on Indeed at all? No. Have you gone to networking events? No. Have you? So all of a sudden it's like, no. Okay, let me look at your LinkedIn. You haven't touched your LinkedIn profile. That's the first place. So there's touch points of this will work or this will not work. At the end of the day, stop being the same. That's the one thing I can tell anybody is stop being the same. Be yourself. Own who you are. Own your genius. And if you can forgive yourself, you can forgive others. You can stop focusing on negative and excuses and start creating an action plan. You want to lose weight, just even putting your running shoes beside your bed, looking at them, even if it takes 6 months of looking at your shoes, eventually your brain's going to go, maybe you should put your feet in your shoes and go for a walk. But that's the first step to moving forward, to making change, kind of thing.
Definitely, man.
Right.
How can a job seeker create a position that do not exist within a company?
So I touched a little bit earlier that. So use the approach of I'm writing an article, I'm doing a blog, I'm doing a podcast, and then reach out to experts and ask to speak to them in the industry that you're trying to go to, right? Get them to share highlight reels, get them to share what they focus on, what they care about, and then start customizing your resume to that. Start reaching out. Again, if you kind of go to a company, go, hey, let's say to an executive, have you ever done this kind of strategy? I hope one of 2 things happen. One, if they've done it, they'll share a little bit of what they did compared to what you were thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And if they haven't done that, they'll ask you for more details, which is usually a good sign. And they'll probably steal this idea from you, which I hope will happen. Here's why I say I hope it will happen. Because after they steal this idea, when you call the executive and say, hey, I've got 8 more ideas for you, and the executive goes, what are they? That's where you go, no. If you want those ideas, you need to hire me, because who better to implement my ideas than me? kind of thing. And so that's, I think, the key thing where most people kind of go, I applied on Indeed and I didn't get a response. Again, your resume might be formatted in a way that the applicant tracking system doesn't catch your resume, or your resume's been on the database for 4 months and you're on page 7,000, nobody sees you, or it's too generic, right? So there's lots of variables, but again, it's when you're networking, how do you stand out? How do you brand yourself? What conversations are you having? What questions are you asking? What's your follow-up? If I follow up once and I don't follow up again, is that the person that didn't respond to me's fault or my fault for not being more proactive, right? If you've ever read Think and Grow Rich, start doing the extra things that no one else is doing. My friend graduated mechanical engineering, and ironically got the you need 5 years experience to get an entry-level job model. So he applied online, didn't get a response. He picked 20 companies that he's interested in, printed 20 copies of his resume, went to the first company, showed up at 9 a.m., said, I'd like to speak to the director. The receptionist looked at him and said, do you have an appointment? He said, no. She looked at him and goes, he's got meetings all day. He goes, okay, great, I'll wait. And he waited there until 2:15 in the afternoon. At 2:15 in the afternoon, the director finally came out and said, I understand you've been waiting for me all day. How can I help you? And he said, look, I know you're not hiring right now. Here's my resume. I just graduated as a mechanical engineer. Here's some of the projects I've done. You're one of the companies I really want to work for. They ended up having a 10-minute conversation. He was offered the job on the spot while talking in front of the receptionist, because he stood there or sat there from 9 in the morning till 2:15 in the afternoon because he was that committed to securing a job. Most people in North America today spend 8 hours on Indeed, but they're not proactive to actually go where the jobs are, to go to the networking. There's resources like Meetup, Eventbrite, where you can find like-minded people that are working in your industry and go for a beer with them or coffee with them and just have conversation. Most companies in North America have, if you're an employee and you refer to as someone that gets hired and they pass probation, the company will pay, let's say you, Michael, between $300 and $3,500, depending on the seniority and the type of position. So it's cash for you. You recommended somebody because you like them, you get along with them. Now your work environment becomes better, right? But how many people actually ask for that? How many people go on Meetup and go, oh, we are a group of accountants, we like talking about accounting, right? Or go on Eventbrite. There's so many free events. There's so many events for $10, right? Because they want to see that you're actually committed to the event. Right. Pay $10 and be part of the conversation. Stop sending on Indeed saying there's no jobs, right?
We talked earlier about some of the biggest factors in regards to like why people do not stay in companies. Can you elaborate a little bit about how can you create the culture or the work environment always want to stay there, committed to being there, and want to see this company thrive?
So the short answer is hire my company to help you build it. But here's the thing that you understand. If you've ever watched the show Undercover Boss, at the end of every episode, the exec goes, oh my God, I should actually speak to the people that work here. I might get some insights on what they're going through, what they're dealing for, right? So even now with a hybrid work model, I think 58% of people that work from home say they miss the water cooler conversation, the let's talk about TV or music or just general kids or whatever. So there's little things you can do even for remote workers, like do a lunch together where everybody just, pardon my expression, shoots the shit rather than talk about work. Where you can do like a trivia and even people on Zoom can participate in it. So you don't need Google and Facebook money to create culture, right? First thing you need to do is make sure that the leadership understands they can't just preach it. So I'm going to give you two examples here. So a friend of mine just got hired as a senior director at a bank. When she was being interviewed for the bank, they showed her this state-of-the-art, beautiful yoga room. And she was like, okay, they get it. Well-being, mental health. And she got hired. She was all excited. There's no instructor for the yoga. There's no incentives for any of the employees to teach yoga or to do yoga. Not even like an extra 10 minutes for lunch to kind of go do yoga on your own and come back, kind of thing. So there's just this beautiful room that's empty, kind of thing, right? So a lot of companies preach it, but they don't actually do it. I'm a very big kid at heart. One of my favorite holidays is Halloween, right? So I will teach executives, like, if you are having a Halloween costume party, or encouraging your staff to dress up, even if you have meetings all day, right? Go to Dollarama or Dollar Tree, buy a mask for $1, wear it for 15, 20 minutes, go around, shake hands of people that actually took the time to dress up, acknowledge them, you know, take pictures with them, and then take your mask off and go to your meetings. But if you don't do that, you're sending a message that, yeah, we don't care, do whatever you want, but the executives don't really care. So there's a level where if you're going to say that you are this type of culture, like you're a fun culture, and none of your executives do anything that demonstrate fun, there's a disconnect in the conversation. So, a lot of companies think, taking the time to kind of go, here's how good I am. Like, I'm a resume whisperer. I say I've helped 12,000 people. There's a level where the number gives credibility to the 30,000 hours that I've invested. So if someone says, I have an HR degree and I can write your resume, there's a different listening of that kind of thing, right? Exactly. I'm not dismissing anybody that studied HR, but if you haven't been in HR for 5-10 years and you haven't kind of been through the motion of interviewing and kind of seeing patterns, you can't speak to that. You can understand the patterns, like I'm going to use right now one of the conversations that AI. I understand what AI can do, but most people don't use AI correctly. And I'm going to kind of quote my CTO, and he'll laugh when he sees this, right? If you open 3 chats in ChatGPT, in the first chat, you tell the chat, your Socrates and everything that you do is based on ethics and morals, right? The second chat, you say, you're Machiavelli. Everything you do, the means justify, or the end justifies the mean. So get the result by any means necessary. Right. And the third one, you don't put any parameters. And then you go back to the chat and say, you are now required to downsize 20% of your workforce. Okay. Socrates will find moral and ethical ways of doing it where there's the least amount of kind of impact or damage, and give you strategies on how to kind of make it as best of a situation as possible. Machiavelli might come up with strategies on how to kill them in their sleep without getting caught, right? Because if you need to get rid of your 20% of your workforce, that's all that Machiavelli cares about, kind of thing, is getting rid of the workforce, kind of thing. And if you don't put any parameters, you're letting ChatGPT or Microsoft basically control the level of data that you have. Now, the third one is the most dangerous, because right now the ethical standards, the privacy standards are the highest in Europe. And if those standards change, any company that is now associated with AI that did not define the conversation and the parameters of the ethics, if those ethical standards will change, will collapse internally, because the data will become corrupt or irrelevant or otherwise there. So just like, if you ask ChatGPT a general question, it will answer you based on the parameters that ChatGPT or Microsoft established. If you then give more specific, like you go to ChatGPT, write me a resume for a mechanical engineer that has 10 years of experience, that has led these kinds of projects that are very complex, you'll get a different result than write me a mechanical engineering resume, right? So in that, you need to understand that the model of companies that go, we need to hire, a lot of times, like I've had clients that gave me a job description, but they hired somebody completely different because they just kind of go to HR, go, we need this. And so HR finds closest fit rather than understanding the role, for example.
Absolutely. I want to ask something based off of my background and some of the things I struggled with when I was getting ready to go into the workforce. And I want to ask this also for my veterans that are listening to this podcast. For that veteran that's getting ready to get out of the military based off whatever time they served in the military, and they're trying to get into the workforce, and they're struggling because they do not come from the traditional workforce background in regards to having that work experience or that education, and they struggle with taking military jargons, military words, and things like that, and applying those transferable skills to go into corporate America. What are some advice and what are some tips that you could give them or share with them to make them be or look like an appealing candidate for a company?
So I love that you asked me that, because both my CTO and my COO are military veterans that are disabled, but kind of working at a very, very high capacity. So one of the things that coming from military background is that you understand structure, you understand obeying orders, you understand this. So those are excellent transferable skills. But this is where someone that serves as a soldier that gets a Medal of Honor or a Medal of Bravery had to do something that's different from the normal. Right? You had to make a decision. You had to lead. You had to execute. So share what you led. Share what you executed. Share the story of this is what earned you accolades beyond the standard military routine. Because for someone to go from soldier to general, admiral, depending on what level of service different levels of title, you had to be a visionary. You had to have strategy. You had to communicate the strategy. You had to be able to execute that strategy. So it's taking the time to, I'll use the word wordsmith skills in a way that says, here's how good I am. So earlier in the conversation, I mentioned reporting. You did a 1-page report, whoop-de-doo. But if you were, I come up with this strategy, here's why I did it, here's the result, like we won the battle, we did this, there's significance to that. And companies can understand that, because every company wants more money, more market share, more profit, whatever, whether it's make money, save money, increase efficiency, there's a level of that, right? It's your responsibility to communicate that. So I'm going to use a simple example. If you approach someone and say, hi, can I get your number? What are your chances?
None.
Slim and none, because they might be very physically attracted to you, so they'll at least give you a time of day, right? But if you come with confidence, like, here's how good I am, here's what I bring to the table, it's no different in the job. If you come to a job and say, please, please, please give me a job, I'm really hardworking, one of two things will happen. One, you get hired, but they won't pay you anything because you don't value what you're worth. Or two, they see how desperate you are and they're not going to hire you because you don't have confidence in what you bring to the table. Why would your employer or potential employer have that? So, and this goes back where, again, in military, you have to follow, practices. There's a very famous motivational, Admiral something, that talks about making your bed first thing in the morning, and everybody in the Marines always goes through their bed is made incorrectly and they become a sugar cookie and all that kind of lingo. But the principle of attaining perfection, the principle of working as a team, the principles of that transfers to any industry, that transfers to any job. Now, obviously, some technical skills, like if you, let's say, and you want to be a software developer, at some point or another, you have to touch technology. You need to communicate what you did. What? Sorry, just give me a second. Wife asked me to relocate for something. But so in that, even if you went on Corsica and did a free course, like, you did something to take action to get to that point of, I now have background. You start playing with it. So you build something on your own to say, here's what I built, here's what it does, here's the configuration. I can gauge your level of aptitude, your level of success, because chances are you built something similar to what already exists. You built something like, like a calendar. So I have Google calendars. I have Microsoft Outlook calendars. What features did you add that made your calendar better than
Right.
other calendars, right? That's how I can measure your skill. So even if you don't have the education, but you've been doing this as a hobby, like, my computer repair guy has had a great career. He doesn't have the most designation, but he's got the ability to think outside the box, go, ooh, like I have a townhouse, my basement doesn't have great internet. He figured out a way to put a router and a replicator and kind of put it together so that I have super fast internet in my basement. I'm not paying him for his designation. I'm paying him for the ability to solve my problem,
Right.
kind of thing. So, depending on where you were in militaria, and depending on what level of service, and depending on, again, your role, right? There's skill sets, like you were a pilot, as precision. There, dealing with a lot of pressure because the G-force, this, right? So take that and take military and say, I did this. So you were in the Navy, you were on a submarine, you were this. So confined areas, time schedule, like schedules, because there's no such thing as being late in the military, right? So you can play to that. You can play to that from a level of, here's, let's say, character skills or soft skills that I bring to the table that other people might not have. Because as you go up the ranking of a particular industry or job, you're doing less of the actual day-to-day technical and more on the strategy, more on the vision, more on the execution of it. So if you're a director, like a VP tells you, here's the strategy. A director communicates what the strategy should do. Your manager or project manager goes, okay, you do this part, you do this part, you do this part, you do this part, and then you have the worker bees that does this. So if you climbed up the ranks in militaria, I need your leadership skills and your communication skills than the actual technical of the actual job. Right. And I think that's where most militaria forget that or miss that fact, because you start off, you pass training, you went into whatever of the 5 militarias, you did your service. But if you ended your military career not as your basic soldier, you've done something, whether it's taking courses, whether it's making decisions, whether it's being successful at the execution of a plan, where, again, it's sad for me to say you survived like a surprise attack, or you did this. You did something that stood out. You did something that was great. And so tell the story that says, here's the people side of it. Here's the soft skills. Here's the character skills. Here's the training I did, like even something, I don't want to use the word basic, but let's say to take apart a weapon and put it back together in a matter of seconds. Yes, there's a process to it. There's a memorization to it, but it's still a matter of following the steps. It's still a matter of understanding the process, kind of thing, right? There's a reason that, let's say, I use, because a few of my friends and mentors are former Marines. There's a reason that Marines will make sure that you fail certain assignments, because they want to prepare you for failure, right? So regardless of how good you are, you will always fail. And even if you didn't fail, whoever is your whatever trainer will find something to fail you on purpose, kind of thing, to make sure you're prepared for that situation, right? So go ahead.
I think that whenever veterans exit out of the military, they sometimes downplay all of the accomplishments, all of the things that they've done. And I think that's where people like you in your space that are experts help to like pull those things out and draw those things out. Because I often see some military guys or some veterans guys do not really know how to express themselves and pull out all of their accomplishments that they've done for over 20 years, and all of the things all of the medals that they've accomplished too as well.
Yeah. So again, uh, the most important thing is to start thinking like, like as basic to break it down is, if you had to do an inventory, what am I proud of? What are my
Yeah.
successes? What are my achievements? What are my accomplishments? Um, what results did I produce? There's a level where, if you've worked three part-time jobs and went to university, man, my hat's off to you. Like that's a different kind of person. Like not everybody can do that, but share that story so that people that potentially hire you understand how much you can handle. Share that
Definitely.
story of there, so again, going back to stop being generic and like, I know how to do this, but tell me details, right? Like I can say to you, I'm a recruiter. Okay, I've worked with each company. Okay, I just like for my banking client, I looked at 1,000 profiles, 600 of them were useless on LinkedIn. I narrowed it down to 100 I liked. I interviewed 20. I sent my client 8. My client told me if he had the money, he would hire all 8. That speaks to my understanding as a recruiter. If I just send him 100 resumes and say, here's 100 resumes that I've interviewed, maybe one of them will hit, but that doesn't speak to I sent you 8 and you CEO tells me I wish I could hire all 8 of them right now, kind of
Hmm.
thing, right? There's a difference in the level of service, the level of caliber, the level of quality, right? Um, you know, this is where, there are, that's why I also said register with multiple agencies, because you'll have agencies that will put you through test after test after test and then do nothing with you. That's their policy, that's their approach. That's fine, but what's your value added? Why are you better, different, or other than anybody else? Everybody has a better, different, or other than anybody else. Like if you reorganize the filing system and you did it in, let's say, like 10,000 files, and you did it in a day, or you did it in two days, you know, you still did it. I will kind of add this adage: if you're pointing a finger at somebody, there's 3 fingers pointing right back at you. What you might think is small and insignificant could be the most important thing to the company that's interviewing you, for
That's right.
example.
That's
So
right.
never dismiss your own, I did this or I was involved with this, because a lot of people go, whatever, like you did this. Okay. But if you don't care of what I did, then clearly you're not the right employer for me.
Right.
Uh, or I'm applying for positions that maybe I didn't do a good job of translating why what I've done is relevant to what they need, for example, right? But, you know, like dating, there is a level of, you need to be responsible to stand in your greatness and stand in, here's what I bring to the table, right? I'm not for everybody. I am one of many resume experts or recruiters that exist in North America. People might say, you know what? And again, Michael, I mean no disrespect, but if you're African American, you might prefer to work with someone who's African American. If you're a former vet, you might prefer to work with vets that work in recruiting because they speak vet, for example, right? If you're female, you might choose to female, whatever your choice, cultural relevance, whatever, that's okay. I'm not expecting to be the right person for everybody, right? Because I might say things to you that you're not ready to hear.
Right.
And so you might need someone that's going to sugarcoat it and fluff it for you because that's what you need right now. I respect that. But find the right one for you. Like they're not hard to find. They're, you know, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, there's videos where people share information and someone says something that resonates with you. You go, oh, maybe I should pay more attention to that person, right? Because they speak me, kind of
Right.
thing, right? So, but don't kind of go, I've tried one way, it doesn't work, and nothing works, which unfortunately, I would say 98% of the population does.
Most definitely. Well, Joseph, man, thank you so much for coming on to the Overcome Diversity podcast. It's been a pleasure to hear your expertise, man. Before we get ready to get out of here, man, how can our listeners find you, work with you, book you on their podcast, invite your company to come and work with them, man?
So, mm, Josef Stetter on pretty much every social platform. There's a website called josephstetter.com. The Celebrate group is my kind of company side. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Facebook. Those are the two platforms I tend to prefer, but I'm still on the other ones. But again, look up my name. You'll find me. That's the easiest way. And then I can kind of, tell you what the different options of working with me, to the level of, if you're somebody that likes to do things on your own, I have an online course. If you are somebody that, wants more of the hand holding, I have programs for that. And I guarantee results, kind of thing. Right. So,
Man, I love it. Well, Joseph, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your expertise, man. I really enjoyed this conversation. I learned a lot more than some things that I thought I knew that was within the workforce space as well, too, man. So I truly enjoyed it, man.
thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Guys, if you like this episode, make sure you like, subscribe, and share to this channel. Share with the family, share with a friend, somebody that's getting ready to get into the workforce. Until next time, God bless.
Ain't it all? Couple dollars in my pocket, no income and go. Been working on my body, getting healthier.
That, sorry, I'm getting a message that I lost connection. Can you still hear me and everything?
Yeah, I can still